You just learned about Emily and me. Now we're going to go over some editing basics, starting with editing responsibilities. Basically, your responsibilities as an editor are to copy edit stories, correct them, and improve the mechanics, flow, and the cohesiveness of the text. Some things to look for are the ABCs of editing, and that's accuracy, brevity, clarity. Accuracy is definitely important for writers and for readers. You want to make sure that you're putting out the correct information, and that includes the spelling of names, facts, numbers, and all of that. Double and triple check the spellings of names is one of the first things that we teach any writer. And I know that I've had my name spelled wrong in text. For some reason, people call me Irwin all the time and write it out that way too. And sometimes when you see that, it takes away the whole validity of a story. So be sure to spell people's names correctly. Nobody likes to have their name spelled wrong. And next, double check figures. You might have to do some math in public on this one, something that a lot of writers don't like to do. But a misplaced comma or misplaced decimal in the number can make a huge difference. If I tell you I have one money, that could be $1, that could be $1,000, that could be $1 million. Next is brevity. A reader can easily lose track of the intent of a story if it's too wordy and redundant. Who's skimmed some readings for school? I know I sure as heck did. I didn't want to read every word of every paragraph of every assigned reading because a lot of it was kind of boring. But when stuff is brief, short paragraphs, to the point, people read through it. And next, make sure it's free of technical errors and jargon, and spell out acronyms. Something that's also important is we say the ABCs, but it's actually important to go ACB. Don't sacrifice clarity for brevity. And you can see that in the graphic here. Sandwich stabbing, you don't know, was a sandwich stabbed? Did somebody stab somebody over a sandwich? Did a sandwich stab another sandwich? Make sure you're giving enough words to give the information that you need to convey, whether it be in your resume or in something that you're writing if you're a journalist in the future or anything like that, in your papers for school. Click the link here for a short video that demonstrates the importance of clarity and simple language. One rule of thumb is to write to express yourself, not to impress other people. We always say write to the 8th grader, write to a 6th grader or an 8th grader, because it's more important for you to be understood than for the world to think that you're really smart. Some other editing responsibilities that you have are spelling, style, grammar, and policy. Under spelling, you should become familiar with some of the words you misspell. Like, I know there are certain words that I spell wrong every single time. And so I just have to keep those on a note and know that I have to look them up pretty much every time. Spell check is also very helpful, but remember it doesn't catch everything. So use spell check, but also go back and read through your stuff and make sure that your spelling is on point. Next is style. Be consistent. Typically, organizations have style guides, and I'm sure with every paper you've had to turn in, you've had to adhere to a particular style for a bibliography, punctuation, capitalization, and all of that stuff. And that doesn't go away. I was just taking college classes, and everything had to be written in APA style, and then I switched over to a class that had MLA style, and it messed me up. But you have to adhere to whatever the style is, whether it be in the classroom or wherever you're working in the future. Next is grammar. Correct grammar helps readers understand the text. Have you ever read something where there was no punctuation, no period, no comma, and you couldn't tell what the person was even trying to tell you? I know I get text messages from family like that. Use some punctuation in your professional writing. You don't have to punctuate your text messages if you don't want to. And next is policy. Remember, if you're writing something, don't violate policy. Don't write stuff that's vulgar or obscene or that has gore in it. Make sure your writing isn't going to make people go, ew, unless of course you're trying to tell a horror story, then have at it. Click the links here for a couple of short videos to talk about common writing errors. Misplaced modifiers and comma errors are mistakes that we see a lot as editors, and they're mistakes that I have to be careful about making all the time. I have to go back and check and double check my writing to make sure that I'm not adding those errors sometimes when I edit an article. And these videos can help you recognize them and stop and take the time and go back and check for them. So you can use any type of editing method, but one that I like that's worked well for me is the 3-step copy editing method. And that's reading whatever it is you're writing, whether it be your resume, a paper, a letter for college, anything like that. Read it out loud just for the tone. And a lot of times when you do that, the ears are going to catch what your eyes miss. So sometimes you'll stumble over a word when you're reading something out loud. And that's a key for you to know, maybe I should go back and change that. Sometimes when you're reading it out loud, you'll say it the way that you really intended to say it, the way that you didn't actually write it. So read it out loud, and I think it will help you with the flow of your articles or of your stories. Next, read it for those spelling and grammar errors. This is when you're going in to really nitpick your article or whatever it is that you've written. Look through it and try to find all of those little spelling errors, all the punctuation errors that you have. And this is also your chance to look for style. Make sure that whatever the style is you're using, APA, MLA, or whatever organization you're working for, their style, make sure that whatever you're writing adheres to it in terms of capitalization, acronyms, anything like that. And then the last thing you're going to do is you're going to read it for polish. And this is to make sure that basically you haven't edited any errors into whatever it is that you've written. It's easy to do. It's easy to get really caught up in track changes and edit a lot of mistakes into a document. So step away and then come back to it, turn off track changes, and just read through it and make sure that the edits that you put in there make sense. And on this side, we're going to talk a little more about consistency and style. Consistency is a big part of writing, and even when you're working for an organization, it's a big part of their reputation. When you read certain newspapers, you expect stories to be written a certain way. When you're writing something on Twitter, it's going to be written differently than if you were writing a long article. And when you're writing for school, some professors, some teachers have different expectations, and you kind of have to adopt all of the different expectations and be able to kind of code shift and put that in your writing. Has anyone used MLA, Chicago, or APA when writing papers? Or have you had to submit a bibliography page or format a paper in a certain way with a cover sheet? If you have, then that's style. And you're going to have to do it through college. And once you get into your job in the future, each organization you work for will probably have a style book, some colors that they like included into the format, and then different methods of putting footnotes in or anything like that. Here at the OCC, we have what's called the OCC Style Manual, and it's a document that kind of tells us what things we should spell out, what words we should and shouldn't use in our writing, and it kind of gives a uniformity to anything that's put out of the OCC, whether that be a news release, a bulletin, or anything like that. When you're editing, you'll develop your skills over time, and you'll start to get to know yourself a little better. I still make some of the same mistakes all the time. There are things that I have to go to our style book and look up every time I use them. For example, the way that we punctuate and capitalize our bullets within bulletins or PPMs, stuff like that. I have to review that every single time I do it and kind of live and breathe by the style book. I also know there are certain words I spell wrong all the time. One of them is grateful. I'm always like, is it G-R-E-A-T full? G-R-A-T-E full? I have to look it up every single time I write it out. You'd think it would stick, but it's not going to stick. So I just have to look it up. And it's helpful to kind of understand the things that you do well, the things that you don't do well, so that you can know when you might have to look things up, when you might have to step away and come back to something and proofread it, or when you have to go through and really read it backwards. Something I do is over time, since I've gotten to know myself, what I edit well what I need help with is I've put tabs throughout my style book, tabs in the dictionary, so I can look up a certain word that I know that I always get wrong. And just knowing yourself, understanding your strengths and weaknesses will help you with a lot of writing later on in life and even beyond writing. I wanted to leave you with a couple of additional links and some information in case you're looking to continue your grammar, writing, and copy editing education. These videos and TED Ed in general is something that I've found very useful in my career for looking up things, finding an entertaining way to maybe make some information stick, especially with grammar, which can be kind of dry and boring from time to time. But all of these links provide some helpful refreshers, and there's no need to go through them right now, but they may be helpful to you down the road, so be sure to hang on to them and bookmark them or whatever, and keep this presentation so that you can review it from time to time. Once you're finished watching this, let's meet back up and we'll talk about any thoughts or questions you have. I'll see you soon.